January 20th, 2023. There was not a riot, I guess, because that's what the media wants us to not call it, is a riot. So we'll talk just a bit about that and what happened with that and how we got from point A to point B and a whole lot of other news about that as well. So we'll see what's happening with that. On the other side of the country, in Monterey Park, California, a shooting kills 11 on a Lunar New Year celebration and was evil white supremacy perpetrated by an Asian man against Asian people. So we'll go over that, some of the problems with that, especially the fact that the firearm was already illegal in the state, and so was the ownership of it. So we'll go over some of that and what's happening with that. The talk of the $1 trillion coin rises up again as Joe Manchin goes on to the Sunday shows and tells us that, yes, maybe we should be negotiating on the debt ceiling and spending cuts, as we're starting to wonder what happens with the debt ceiling now. So we'll go over some of that. And yes, last but not least, even more documents are found in the Biden house. It is going to be all this and more. I got more votes than Kevin McCarthy. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and we have got quite a bit of stuff to go over here over the weekend. A few really big news stories popping off, and a handful of little ones coming as well with the riots in Atlanta. Well, not riots, I guess we should say. It's not a riot, people. Let me tell you, it's not a riot. Plus, the shooting in Monterey, California, that was quickly debunked and now has resulted in us all coming to try to find the motive, not running after the already illegal gun or trying to blame white supremacy again, because that's where we started with that, and the document dump. Plus, the debt ceiling remains on everybody's mind, as now people are starting to wonder how this is going to affect finance and whether or not we actually are going to overcome the debt ceiling and have our conservative friends cuck in the middle of this and give in to whatever the Democrats want. So we've got a lot to go over here. We're going to get started. I do apologize for starting just a few minutes late. I was in a position, I did have to run across the state today and take care of some business in my old place, and, well, from here, I don't know that I'm ever going to have to go back over there again if I don't want to. I mean, the reason that I moved is I didn't really have a lot of community over there, so I actually don't know if I'll ever be in the Janesville area again in my life. But maybe it'll happen, we'll see. I mean, stranger things have happened in my life before, but we'll be talking about that separately. Maybe I'll have to go down there for a riot, who knows? But that'll be another story for another time. But I do welcome you to your evening news. This is Contemporary. Before we get started, guys, make sure you go and check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, and the No Gimmicks podcast. Go check out all that great content across all platforms, as we are working together to try to bring you a new and better news and culture source from the common man for the common man. That is right, for too long. So many of us have gotten our news and culture from people who wear suits that cost more than our houses. So instead, we would like you to get your news and culture from us, who have had to make some of the same kinds of decisions that you have. So go check out all that great programming, and we are going to get started into the news today, and we will start, as always, with the finance. Looking in at the Dow to start with. Let's get the live chat up here, see what you guys are doing. And feel free to check in with the live chat. I'm going to start interacting a little bit more with the live chat. I know that we're typically on time crunches here because, especially on Monday and Tuesday with the Porch Boys, starting right after the stream here. But, you know, again, on Friday when we normally do the live chat shout out here, I mean, so many people are running out and doing their dating and things like that. But, you know, we're not setting up the hard time crunch again either, where I have to go run off and be to work at a certain time either. So I'm going to try it out, and I have been trying it out for the last few weeks, and, you know, seeing some of the live chat. If it's like up there and relevant, I might throw something out there, especially if it's from a regular, but I still will not probably be going through, it's not going to be like the daily ignoramus. But let's get into the finance for the morning here, or the afternoon rather. From the Dow's at 33,629.56 today. That is up 254.07 points, or about 3/4 of a point. Looks like everything dropped off at the beginning. Looks like the futures actually were up, and then it dropped, gave up the futures in the very beginning of trading before climbing back and reaching back towards the 34,000 mark without reaching it. So a few things to watch with that. We will see what the investors have to say with that. Looking in at your Bitcoin, which was a mixed and wild ride. We can bring this out to the 5-day and see what happened over the weekend. And we already saw the massive spike coming up on Friday, which carried some momentum before giving some of it, but not all of it, back up over the weekend into Saturday, and then holding steady throughout the weekend to bring us up to $22,946 on the 5-day. That is up $1,862 or 8.84%. So those of you who did throw a 20 or something into Bitcoin, I trust that not many people who watch this show are people who put their mortgages up to go into Bitcoin, but those of you who were able to throw a 20 or 100 into it here and there, congratulations, you're looking a little bit better than you were before. When is this show now, MK Ultra? This is at 6 p.m. Central Time every Monday through Friday, 6 to 8, and then at 8 on Monday and Tuesday we have Porch Boys. Let's look in at the gas in the Madison area. Even though I don't live towards the Madison area anymore, we can still go and check that out. I filled up down by the Janesville area at 319 because it was a Shell, and I typically get better fuel economy out of Shell gas than anything else. And by the way, if you ever come and visit in the La Crosse area, which I'm not going to say which city I'm in the La Crosse area, but I will say that I am in the La Crosse area now, you will notice when we go into the city proper, you will only see one kind of gas station. That's because that gas station is headquartered in the city. Yes, we only have Quick Trips, and unfortunately Quick Trip actually gives me worse gas mileage. I don't know why. I love everything else about that particular gas station chain, just not the fuel. Well, looking in around the Madison area, the Quick Trip leading out on the north side is at 320. The BP next to it is at 320 as well. The Quick Trip going out on 151 is at 314. Out to the west side, the Quick Trip has 954 has jumped up to join the rest of us at the above 3 mark at 309. The Quick Trip on the southwest side is at 320. The Speedway is up to 325. The Amoco is up to 310, and the Quick Trip going into the Isthmus is at 320. The BP leaving the area on Highway 18, the Beltline, has been removed from speculation on this, so we don't have anything for that, but we'll continue to watch and see where the gas prices go in a controlled market that we've been watching for the past 3 years and see what the gas prices do. So that's where we are at for that. Let's grab one from IBD. Yeah, gas went up 30 cents the last time I filled up. That's lame. Dow rallies 250 points. What to do now? 10 best stocks to buy and watch from Scott Latonin. Dow futures were slightly lower in extended trade after the Dow Industrial Average rallied 254 points on Monday. IBD stock of the day Etsy and security leader Axon Enterprises, both of which broke out today, are two of the 10 best stocks to buy and watch as the stock market rally continues. On the economic front, data this week includes Tuesday's preliminary January PMI for manufacturing and services from Researcher Market, and on Thursday, fourth quarter GDP estimates from the Commerce Department, as well as the Labor Department's weekly jobless claims and December new home sales numbers from the Census Bureau. Finally, inflation data will wrap up the week on Friday with the Commerce Department's PCE price index. So a lot of news happening this week, and this is a lot of potential to bring the market in one direction or the other. So we will see what's happening this week. Key earnings this week include Dow Jones members, American Express, Boeing, Chevron, IBM, Intel, Johnson & Johnson, Microsoft, Travelers, Verizon, and Visa. Other important earnings are ASML, and that is not ASMR. That is in fact ASML. So it's a completely different thing, so don't get your hopes up for whispering and weird sounds coming in here. DR Horton, Halliburton, and Tesla. On the market today, on Monday, Dow Industrial Average rallied 0.8, and the S&P climbed 1.2. The tech-heavy Nasdaq jumped 2%. Among ETFs, the Nasdaq 100 Tracker Invesco QQQ Trust moved up 2.2%, and the SPDR S&P 500 rose 1.2%. EV giant Tesla traded 7.7% on Monday among the Dow Jones stocks. Apple gained 2.35%, and Microsoft rose 1% in today's stock market. Axon Enterprise, Etsy, IBD leaderboard stock Fluor, recent IBD stock of the day Medpace, Monster Beverages, and Vertex Pharmaceuticals, as well as Dow Jones names Caterpillar, Chevron, and JP Morgan Chase and Visa are among the top stocks to buy and watch, with the market extending its recent gains. Fluor and Medpace are on the IBD leaderboard. Vertex was IBD stock of the day on Wednesday. Axon and JP Morgan were featured in this week's Stocks Nearby Zone column. On the future, ahead of Tuesday's opening bell, Dow futures inched lower versus fair value. The S&P dropped 0.1, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq also fell 0.1. Remember that the overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. The 10-year yield rose to 3.52% on Monday, rising for a third straight session. Still, the 10-year yield is looking to rebound after a 3-week losing streak. Saw it hit its lowest level since mid-September. U.S. oil prices raced solid gains on Monday. West Texas futures traded below $82 a barrel, near last week's high price. No, we have to get them to $30 a barrel. But we have that. I'm actually going to skip the investing.com story because that's talking about the futures that IBD just talked about. And we will start today with a bit of performative art before we go into the story about the riots. So, video for us from Defend the Atlanta Forest. Police arrest 3 and kneel on the neck of a person screaming, "I can't breathe," at the Stop the Cop City Justice for Tort protest in Atlanta tonight. So let's look at this, and I'm going to tell you right now, we can look at this from the distance and see that there's no kneeling on the neck and that people are screaming about this. Everything that we're seeing with stuff like this is all performative. So let's watch. You can clearly breathe if you're able to project that much. Now, there's the conversation about St. George of Floyd, who also screamed that he couldn't breathe, but that was muted and raspy as well, and there was actually evidence that he possibly couldn't breathe, whether it be from the knee of the neck, on the neck rather, from a police officer, or more likely, the massive amount of drugs in his system. The world may never know on that, but, we can suspect all through everywhere. I tend to lean towards the latter myself.
So you can hide it? So you can hide it? Make it quick so you can hide it? We all got it on video.
Fucking hurt our friend.
Go.
What did you do? What did they do?
Pick them up.
Pick him up, pick him up!
So you can hide it? So you can hide it? Make it quick so you can hide it? We all got it on video.
Fucking hurt our friend.
Yeah, I don't think they're trying to hide it either, but, you know, that's where we're at right now. So let's talk about what happened here. From Fox 5 Atlanta to start. Atlanta riots timeline. How Stop Cop City movement led to violent night in downtown. From Fox 5 Atlanta digital team. Let's read a little bit of this. We'll come back and watch this video. Downtown Atlanta on January 21st flooded with people demanding justice for an activist killed near the site of a planned Atlanta Police Department training facility, which we talked about this last week. Law enforcement said the protester, who law enforcement identified as 26-year-old Manuel Esteban Pais Terran, opened fire on a Georgia State Patrol trooper before other officers returned fire. Now, I would like to see evidence of this. A body cam, a dash cam of something, to show that Manuel was the one who shot first. The violence downtown is part of an ongoing tensions that have happened for more than a year in Atlanta and DeKalb County, where law enforcement said environmental activists camping out in the forest have fought against the training facility's construction by committing crimes. Protesters say the facility will destroy the Weelaunee forest and expand law enforcement in the area. Kinda sounds like you need it. Not really. I mean, the people in the Atlanta area need to arm up first. Should have screamed, yes sir, they'd probably be a bit nicer. Oof. Oof. Here's how the battle between police and protesters progressed over several months. June of 2021, proposal to build new training facility to attract officers. Atlanta proposed the building of the state-of-the-art training facility to attract more officers. I think Elaine and I talked about that at the time. I think Elaine was still my co-host at the time, and I think we did discuss this at the time. Leaders pinpointed about 300 acres in DeKalb, where there was already a police firing range. July of 2021, opposition to police training facility. Opponents of the training center built platforms in surrounding trees and camped out at the site. Protesters infamously referred to the future facility as Cop City. Councilmember Joyce Shepard, who championed the proposal, planned for public hearings for feedback. September 2021, the police training facility is approved, obviously. May of 2022, incendiary device seen on security video. Yeah, walk toward it, you moron. See how that goes for you. It does appear just to be the one. I mean, as they walk around, it just kind of smolders out, and then the fire brigade comes out. And then a second one thrown at a protest during a Cop City site. Ooh. You can almost not see it because it looks like it hit the pavement. Is it burning? Let's back that up a bit. Excuse me. Shut up, you. I think I missed it the second time. Yep, there it goes. But yeah, I can't tell if it actually lights up or not. Doesn't appear to have. Fail. Yeah, I mean, if you watch close right here where my cursor is, you can see it launch out here and land behind this cop car, but yeah, I don't see anything burning. Yeah, that's the first one. May of 2022, vandalism at the office of contractor Brassfield and Gorey. On a window, a note was left that said drop Cop City or else. Damage allegedly caused around 80 grand. Atlanta police issued a $25,000 reward for information leading to arrests. The vandals appeared to have left the scene in a white Prius on 31st Street. July through September, neighborhoods blame activists for the vandalism because they were going through, knocked over by security cameras knocked over. Vandals destroyed the truck of a landowner of a nearby property. Let's see, December of 2022, domestic terrorism charges for multiple activists. The GBI said 5 people faced domestic terrorism charges accused of throwing rocks and bottles at police cars and EMTs along Boulder Crest Road. Protesters said SWAT teams swarmed the woods earlier the day, shutting down roads for hours. Demonstrators claimed police tore down encampments. The GBI said the sweep was part of a joint task force formed to combat ongoing criminal activity. December 2022, protesters responded to domestic terrorism charges. A group of protesters opposing plans to construct the Atlanta Police Department training facility accused police of using plastic bullets and pepper spray while arresting multiple protesters. Marlon Kotz with the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, which provides legal support for people arrested during protests, said protesters were unarmed and not violent. And then back to what we talked about last week. January 18th, 2023, activist killed, trooper shot near planned training facility. A Georgia State Patrol trooper was shot, and a protester who law enforcement identified as 26-year-old Manuel Esteban Paez was killed. Cop City activists said the person killed was known as Tortuguita. Investigators say a forensic ballistic analysis confirmed the remains of the bullet pulled from the trooper's body during the surgery was fired from a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm recovered at the scene. Investigators said the gun was used by the slain protester. And up to today, downtown Atlanta protests turned violent. A protest following a vigil for an activist's death took a violent turn in downtown Atlanta. Following Friday night memorial service, Atlanta Police Chief Darren Shearbaum said a crowd gathered Saturday for a peaceful protest at Underground Atlanta. For about an hour, people dressed in black marched along Peachtree Street in downtown demanding justice. Shearbaum said on Ellis Street and Peachtree Street, a group started breaking windows and attacking police cruisers. A total of 6 people were arrested. So that is our timeline from how we started to where we are today. Let's listen to the police chief.
Tonight, city and state leaders condemned the action of those protesters who incited violence earlier. In a joint news conference, Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens and Police Chief Darren Shearbaum spoke to about that incident. Let's go now to Joy Dukes, who has more on their response. Joy, very strong remarks from them.
Yeah, Eric, Mayor Dickens and Police Chief Darren Shearbaum made their stance on this very clear, saying that they will always support and protect the First Amendment right to peacefully protest, but that the kind of violence that we saw tonight is not welcome in this city.
In a matter of moments, a demonstration honoring a protester killed in an exchange of gunfire with officers earlier this week over the planned Atlanta police training facility nicknamed Cop City took a violent turn.
A group inside that marching crowd decided to start committing illegal acts, which included the breaking of windows and also attacking police cruisers that were in the area.
I don't know how we could have predicted that they were going to do that. They only said that they were going to do it. Gee, I wonder how we could have possibly known that.
That immediately changed the focus of this police department.
Video shows individuals throwing rocks at windows of downtown buildings, setting off fireworks and explosives that caused an APD police cruiser to go up in flames.
It was definitely something crazy. I'm from a small town, so.
Atlanta Police Chief Darren Shearbaum did not mince words in a press conference following the announcement of 6 arrests.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist or an attorney to tell you that breaking windows and setting fires is not protest. That is terrorism.
Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens added to that, saying this.
To those who seek to continue this type of criminal behavior, we will find you and we will arrest you and you will be held accountable.
Both Mayor Dickens and Chief Shearbaum said they fully support and protect the right to protest, but property damage will result in prosecution to the fullest extent of the law. Governor Brian Kemp echoed some of those sentiments, saying, quote, violence and unlawful destruction of property are not acts of protest. They are crimes that will not be tolerated in Georgia and will be prosecuted fully.
Our law enforcement partners are fully engaged and have the resources to protect our residents, our visitors, and our businesses in this city.
Now, Atlanta City Councilman Michael Bond also weighing in on this tonight, saying, quote, Atlanta is born of the spirit of demonstration and protest, but we should denounce and avoid violence and any call for it. Senator John Ossoff also releasing a statement about this tonight, saying peaceful protest is a sacred constitutional right, but violence is unacceptable, cannot be permitted or tolerated, and must cease immediately. That's the latest here from APD headquarters.
All right, so let's talk about this, because now we're seeing it's in the situation where we do have to question why this is happening now and why this particular incident was able to be brought up. And because, if you listen to the rioters, there have been dozens of police-involved shootings in the country already just this year. But why this one? And I do think that there is a level, by the way. And this goes all the way back to the Patrick Loyola shooting of last year. There is a level of a situation here where they didn't want to see the riots unless they were under a president they were trying to get rid of. And the fact that now we're having this protest, this particular shooting is the one that elevates to the news, which again, from every single narrative that I have of this, and of course we have no body cam, we have no dash cam, we have no nothing. But from every single narrative that I have of this, if I were to accept them at face value, is a justified shooting. Whereas the Loyola shooting was a definitely, completely unjustified shooting. Something that actually probably should have brought out protest. If you point blank blow a dude's lungs out after you have him pinned and kneeling down on his back, that's probably just a little bit unjustified. And yet, not a single brick, glass bottle, anything. A couple marches from some very uninspired people and nothing. But this coming up here shortly after the documents. When did the riot start in 2020? Shortly after it still looked like the Donald was going to get reelected. Me smells something fishy here. From the Blaze, Georgia AG tells Atlanta media to stop referring to rioters as protesters, which is, by the way, inspiring the title card of this episode today. This is racism. Just say it's racism. It's not. Well, I should hope that's not racism, but Georgia AG tells Atlanta media to stop referring to rioters as protesters. Peaceful protesters use the word rioters. Set police cars on fire. From Dave Urbanski. Georgia AG Chris Carr told media members in Atlanta to stop referring to the Cop City rioters as protesters amid lawlessness in the city this weekend. To the Atlanta media, peaceful protesters use words. Rioters smash windows, set police cars on fire, and shoot law enforcement officers. Carr tweeted on Saturday, "Stop calling these people protesters. It's a fiery but mostly peaceful protest." I hear from CNN. Which, by the way, isn't CNN still headquartered in Atlanta? Carr issued hashtags linked to local stations, WAGA-TV, WSB-TV, WXIA-TV, GPB News, as well as the Atlanta Journal-Constitution newspaper. And we know the background. Bill Heath III says, breaking, Cop City protesters throw rocks at Atlanta Police Foundation building in downtown. They also set off fireworks and spray painted the building. As a dude who is braver than I, because that is somebody with probably at least an expensive cell phone camera, if not a TV camera, like that guy has, that I would not want to be walking away around near where people want to go rob crap. Look, it's fiery, but it's mostly peaceful, right? A local internet reporter calls the protests in Atlanta largely peaceful, as a police cruiser is on fire in the background, just like the car dealership on fire in the background back in Kenosha.
We're taking you right now. You can see people running in opposite directions, and on the other side
Eric,
of that. Yeah, Tyler.
I do want to. Yeah, Eric, we're far enough away. You'll see the officer right there with APD. He has what appears to be zip ties. We're far enough down where we can't see if they've taken anyone into custody, but it did appear that they were ready to do that to try to calm the situation that's unfolding here. And as you said, this really a protest initially to try to protest what happened on Wednesday here, where they were handing out. That vehicle still up in flames here over at Andrew Young.
Cut the camera,
and if you
seriously.
take a look over here, if you pan over, I want to show you. This is what they were handing out
Yeah,
at that protest.
No,
So it was a
don't
largely
look at
peaceful
the
protest
vehicle on fire.
where they just wanted what they're calling justice for so sorry. And right now, you'll see, basically, they want justice for him
still burning.
after the shooting that happened.
It's still burning.
When the Atlanta police and the different law enforcement agencies were raiding the forest over there to try to basically clear out the forest after everything that was going on.
And Ultra They says CNN is still bringing on the dummies, simping for Antifa and their violence.
Well, I think that there's a real blurring of the lines, and the word violence is property destruction violence. To some people, it certainly is. But, this idea that breaking windows or other acts of property destruction are the same as actual violence against humans it's kind of a dangerous and slippery concept. And look, I don't think this is a smart move. I don't think it's a productive move from the standpoint of the protesters. But as even the chief himself said, this is a small group. This is also within this Defend the Forest movement. There are no leaders, so people go off and do their own things. That doesn't just make them justifiable. But I do think that you keep using these words violent, and it gives the impression. The only violence the only acts of violence against people that I saw were actually police tackling protesters.
Mostly peaceful, folks. The arrest record is out from WSB TV out of Atlanta. APD, 6 protesters arrested in downtown Atlanta identified. Only one is from Georgia. And by the way, it appears that they were armed as well, so Now we have people who are coming into protest crossing state lines with firearms. From WSBTV.com news staff. We'll look at the charges in just a moment. APD have identified the 6 people arrested Saturday after a protest turned violent. According to police records, only one of the people arrested lives in Georgia. Atlanta Police Chief Darren Shearbaum told Channel 2 Action News that a group of protesters dressed in all black began peacefully marching down Peachtree Street, which again is fine. March all you want. When they got to the intersection of Ellis Street, some protesters started breaking windows and attacking Atlanta Police Department patrol cars. One of the APD cruisers was set on fire. I think it was more than that. 3 businesses, including a Wells Fargo, were damaged, Shearbaum said. No officers were injured. Hundreds of protesters opposed to the construction of an APD training center gathered at Underground Atlanta before moving down Peachtree into the heart of downtown Atlanta. According to police, the 6 people arrested were identified as Nadia Geyer, 24, of Nashville, Madeline Fiola of Spokane. Okay, so Madeline crossed a lot of state lines. Ivan Ferguson of Nevada, Graham Evat, 20, from Decatur, Georgia, Francis Carroll from Kennebunkport, Maine, and Emily Murphy from Grosse Isle, Michigan. So, and again, it's not like these people are just coming in over from, like, Kentucky or Tennessee. This is like coming from all over or on the other side of it, coming over from Florida. Florida man. Each of the suspects faces felony charges, including second-degree criminal damage, first-degree arson, interference with government property, and domestic terrorism. Earlier this week, the Georgia State Patrol and other agencies were at the proposed facility site clearing protesters who have been camped out in the forest for months. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation says one of the protesters, Manuel Terran, shot a state trooper and was killed by return fire. 7 fellow protesters were arrested Wednesday and charged with domestic terrorism and criminal trespass. Yeah, even the protesters are white supremacists. Like, they don't trust the blacks to go out there and protest. Look at all that white over there. The charges from CNN, charges announced for those arrested in protests over controversial Cop City and fatal police shooting of the activist. Police have released the charges for the 6 people who were arrested Saturday in downtown, authorities said, during protests that came in response to a proposed police training facility and the fatal police shooting of an activist earlier this week. They each face 4 felony charges: domestic terrorism, arson in the first degree, criminal damage in the second degree, and interference with government property, according to police. You know, with a charge list like that, doesn't this sound a little bit like let's see, domestic terrorism, interference with government property. What would we call something like that? I don't know. Anybody jump in. How about insurrection? Each of the suspects, who range from 20 to 37, is also facing 4 misdemeanor charges, including unlawful assembly, police said. Only one is from Georgia. The others are from Tennessee, Washington, Maine, and Michigan. So they cross state lines to go and commit domestic terrorism. From Newsweek. Marjorie Taylor Greene takes aim at Merrick Garland over Atlanta unrest. From Anders Anglesey, I don't know why the people are being arrested and facing federal charges. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Georgia Republican, has hit out at A.G. Garland amid violent protests in Atlanta. In a series of tweets shared on Saturday, the GOP lawmaker slammed left-wing protesters who carried out a brief riot in downtown before the police brought the situation under control. Atlanta police are under attack by Antifa terrorists. Left-wing terrorism is the biggest threat to democracy. When will Merrick Garland and the DOJ go after actual terrorists instead of MAGA/Trump supporters? Greene wrote. She later posted a photo of a burning vehicle and added in another tweet, "It's happening again tonight in Atlanta. When will our federal agencies start taking left-wing terrorism seriously? Looking at you, Merrick Garland. Antifa, BLM equals domestic terrorism." But, see, the people that they were able to catch got arrested and got charged. It is not known if protesters on Saturday had any affiliation with Antifa. They probably didn't. They were just dressed all in black. In black lock. With masks on. So they had all the identifiers of Antifa, but they totally weren't Antifa or affiliated. They just looked like them, act like them, carried out their MO. Weird. Garland's DOJ has overseen the arrest of hundreds of Trump supporters who were charged with crimes in connection with the Selfie Fest at the Capitol building in D.C. on January 6, 2021. So again, I mean, with Greene, I understand that like we're not going with full-on drag them all out, find them all, use the FBI to hunt them all down. But on the other end of this, we also point out the fact that, yes, a large group of people were arrested for this. They were stupid, they were slow, they got caught, and they're facing felony for it. Here's an interesting conversation coming to us about this. This will be the last one we talk about with Atlanta right now. Then we'll go talk about Monterey Park. Democrats want to prevent so-called insurrectionists from holding office. Silent on whether BLM rioters will get a pass, or the people who bail them out, by the way. That's encouraging and empowering them. From Joe McKinnon. Democrat lawmakers across America appear keen to prevent those they have characterized or will one day characterize as insurrectionists from holding public office. Whereas before, activists sought only to preclude a handful of individuals, such as President Trump and Madison Cawthorn, from running on the basis of untried accusations, lawmakers in New York, Connecticut, and Virginia are now joining others in baking their January 6 narrative into law, reported the Associated Press. Ooh, a D-Live. I don't know who that is, but he made a D-Live. The USA Today noted that the fear of sabotage from within the government by Confederate remnants in the aftermath of Civil War prompted Congress to include a disqualification clause in the Constitution. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment bars rebels or insurrectionists from holding any office, civil or military, under the U.S. Congress may, however, per the provision, remove such prohibition with a 2/3 vote of each House. Congress did so in 1872, passing the Amnesty Act with more than 2/3 of the vote, thereby removing all political disabilities imposed by the 3rd section of the 14th Article of the Amendments from all persons whomsoever. According to the University of Minnesota Law School's constitutional commentary, supermajorities in the Congress removed additional disabilities as a gesture of national unity in 1898. Notwithstanding the Reconstruction-era amnesty, Fox 13 reported that Section 3 was invoked in 1919 when Congress barred socialist Victor K. Berger from occupying a seat in the House over his opposition to America's entries in World War I. Yeah, I can see where the war pigs probably wouldn't want to have somebody like that in Since this law is already enshrined in the Constitution, New York Republican Assemblyman and Minority Leader Will Barclay told the Associated Press that Democrats were simply making a political statement. Yes. So here's the thing. I hear a lot of talk, and I always point it out when I'm on Twitter when I talk about it, that yes, there's a lot of talk about the fact that the insurrectionist congresspeople should be removed from their seats. And I agree with the text that they have in the 14th Amendment. I do. The problem that I have with the way that they're doing it is the expectation is that they be deemed insurrectionists via trial by social media. But we do also have the due process clause in the 5th and 14th Amendments that says that no man shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property, or the pursuit of happiness, without due process of law defined in both amendments as a trial by a jury of one's peers. So you actually have to convict them in front of a jury of your peers before you can impose. It's not just a trial by social media. As much as our friends on the left would like to use a trial by social media as a way to eliminate their political enemies, we still have provisions to take care of this. But that's where we're at with that. Let's talk about Monterey Park. A couple tweets announcing this first, before all the facts were out, of course. One from Senator Chuck U. Schumer. I'm heartbroken by the news of the shooting in Monterey Park amid a Lunar New Year celebration. I'm praying for the victims, their families, the first responders. We must stand up to bigotry and hate wherever they rear their ugly heads. And we must keep working to stop gun violence. Boy, it sounds like we have a motive for this already. I mean, it's evil bigotry and white supremacy, right? And this tweet is still live, by the way. He hasn't come back and deleted this. Another one coming from pencil-necked Adam Schiff. 10 dead in Monterey Park. I am sickened. I have evidence that ties this to Donald Trump. A horrific example of needless gun violence, with bigotry towards AAPI individuals as a possible motive. The families are in my prayers as we seek information by law enforcement. We'll never quit demanding real action on gun safety. That'll be important later on, by the way, Adam Schiff, especially with this happening in your state. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's in your district. Okay, 30th California. '30th Congressional District map. Alright, let's see where Monterey Park is. So that's over by the 710. Between the 10 and the 60. Okay, now that's... He's quite a bit further north from that. We'll show you my homework here. So this is where you're at on the I-10 over by California 60. But this is where the district is. So yeah, this is considerably north of where we're talking about. So no, this didn't happen in your district, Adam Schiff. I apologize. From CBS, Monterey Park shooting, 11 killed at Lunar New Year celebration. Suspect dead from apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. No author given. The suspect in a shooting in Monterey Park, that left at least 11 dead and another 10 wounded, is dead in LA County. Sheriff Robert Luna said on Sunday the suspect, identified as 72-year-old Hu Kan Tran. Boy, that sounds like a good American Anglo-Saxon name, doesn't it? Luna said. The massacre was the nation's 5th mass killing this month. It was also the deadliest attack since May 24th, when 21 people were killed. In an elementary school in Uvalde, the death toll stood at 10 on Sunday, but rose to 11 on Monday, when one of the wounded victims died of their injuries. Luna said earlier that law enforcement was dealing with barricaded suspect situation in the city of Torrance. Officers pulled over a white van at 10:20 a.m. local time Sunday. The van then pulled into a shopping center parking lot, and police heard a single gunshot from inside the vehicle, according to Luna. Officers wearing tactical gear and armor approached the van at 12:52 p.m. and found the suspect dead. So that is, by the way, just for those of you keeping score at home, a 2.5-hour standoff with a dead guy. Just for those of you who are keeping score at home. A handgun was recovered from inside the van, Luna said. The dramatic scene involving the van was captured by news helicopters with multiple angles, or armored vehicles rather, positioned in front, to the side, and behind the van, with officers in fatigues and body armor at the rear of the vehicle. Police said that no other suspects, and they're still not clear on the motive. So we go from this, we must stand up to bigotry and hate as our motive, and bigotry towards AAPI as a possible motive, to, oh no, we have no idea what the motive is. Oh no! Luna said that 5 men and 5 women were killed and another 10 wounded in the shooting at the Star Ballroom Dance Studio in Monterey Park late Sunday night. An 11th victim died later. Then, 20 to 30 minutes later, the suspect entered the Lai Ballroom in nearby Alhambra. He walked in there with a firearm, and some individuals wrestled the firearm away from him, and that individual took off, Luna said earlier on Sunday. Luna said a magazine-fed, semi-automatic assault pistol with an extended large-capacity magazine was recovered from the Alhambra location. He said he believes that type of weapon isn't legal in California, but more research was needed. Well, the extended mag makes it illegal in California by itself. I have not seen any confirmation on the weapons. There's talk that it's an AR-style pistol with a pistol brace, both of which are unlawful to own in the state of California. 2 law enforcement sources told CBS that investigators were conducting ballistic analysis of the weapon found at the scene in Alhambra to try to determine if the weapon is connected to the Monterey Park shooting and whether the person was the same suspect. Shortly after 10, officers arrived on the scene of the Monterey Park shooting in response to calls of shots fired and found 10 people wounded inside the Star Dance studio. They were taken to local hospitals where 7 of them remained as of Sunday night, Luna said. The victims all appear to be at least 50, Luna said on Sunday night. Luna said Sunday that the victim center had been set up and urged anyone to go who suspected a family member had been at the dance hall. Federal agents from the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, which, by the way, should be a convenience store, not a federal bureau, were on the scene assisting local police. And the White House press secretary, token diversity hire, said President Brandon had been updated on the shooting. Hey, Jill and I are thinking of those killed and injured in last night's deadly mass shooting in Monterey, Mr. Biden said in a statement on Sunday night. Well, there's still so much more we don't know about the motive in this senseless attack. We can't say it's white supremacy because it wasn't a white person. We do know that many families are grieving tonight or praying that their loved one will recover from the wounds. Man, come on. Let's see, what else do we have here? I'm not going to go into the article here, but we've got the pulse-pounding moment where the hero is seen grabbing the Monterey mass shooter's gun. Actually, I want to open this up here and see if they have video of it, or just the still. Well, I guess let's see. This might be the one, because that looks like the dude in that still that we had over here. Let's watch.
Disarm him, or else everybody would have died. So when I got the courage, I lunged at him with both my hands, grabbed the weapon, and we had a struggle.
Yeah, I haven't touched the Tim Allen one yet because we were out of time. We were out of space already. I still don't think we're going to get through everything today, but yeah, that's a weird one. 30 years later. Oh, he might have shown me his junk. Oh, I wonder if we have video here. Watch. Let me refresh this. Yep, we've got the video. Security video shows moment man disarms Monterey Park shooter. Looks like there's no audio here, but the man seen with the gunman is Brandon Say. This happened at a second location in Alhambra after the gunman opened fire in Monterey Park. So we'll see this. No one was hurt at the Alhambra location. Say is being hailed as a hero who saved lives. So I can't see real clearly on there, but it looks like extended barrel, possibly suppressed. I do see a pistol brace, and yes, extended mag. So yeah, that is a highly illegal weapon in the state of California. And yes, the magazine is forward of the grip, not in the grip. So, yep, that's a tactical pistol, which is also illegal in the state of California. And all that struggle and the thing doesn't go off. That's the incredible part. Look at it. That's the surprising part. That is a fairly small looking magazine too. I wonder what that was chambered in. And of course the updated that we heard about earlier from KTLA. Death toll in Monterey Park, shooting now 11, motive still unclear. From Mark Sternfield, Josh DuBose, Cameron Kisla of the Associated Press. Another victim of Saturday night's shooting at Star Ballroom Dance Studio in Monterey Park, California succumbed to their wounds on Monday, bringing the death toll to 11, officials said. The victim, whose name was not released, died at LAC and USC Medical Center, where 4 of the 10 people who initially survived the shooting were transported. Our heroic staff at LAC USC have worked tirelessly to care for the 4 victims entrusted to our care, hospital officials said in a news release. Unfortunately, despite our best efforts, we were saddened to share that one of the victims has succumbed to their extensive injuries. We want to express our deepest sympathies to their families and their loved ones. The LA County Medical Examiner coroner on Monday identified 3 of the victims as Mai Nan, 65, and Lylan Lee, 63, and Alvaro Valentino, 68. Nan's niece posted an emotional tribute on Twitter. She spent so many years going to the dance studio in Monterey Park on weekends. It's what she loved to do, but unfairly, Saturday was her last dance. Really, you had to go there. I've made it 3 years just about on Contemporary without crying. You really had to go there? Come on. I'm not crying, you're crying. We're starting the lunar year broke, and we never imagined her life would end so suddenly. Authorities continue to search for a motive behind the mass shooting because they can't pin it on white supremacy that marred Lunar New Year celebrations in this predominantly Asian community just east of downtown LA. The gunman, Hu Kan Tran of Hemet, died of self-inflicted gunshot wound during the standoff with law enforcement roughly 25 miles from the scene. 20 to 30 minutes after the Monterey Park shooting, authorities say Tran entered the Lai Lai ballroom in nearby Alhambra armed with what officials described as a magazine-fed semi-auto pistol that had an extended large-capacity magazine attached to it. Yes, we know. Police still searching for a motive. We'll skip that one. Found dead. We know that one. And Ian Miles Chong right at the end. The Monterey Park shooter was described as an Asian male. There goes the white supremacy narrative out the window. Let's listen.
There is a male suspect that fled the scene and remains outstanding as of this moment. Our very preliminary description has been described as a male Asian, and that's from the scene here in Monterey Park. And it's taken us a while, and please be patient with us, because as we're interviewing victims and witnesses, we've gotten different descriptions of one suspect. So when I say it's preliminary, please again be patient with us. We are here to tell you that we are utilizing every resource to apprehend this suspect in what we believe to be one of the county's most heinous cases. Our local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies are working together to better serve the residents here of Los Angeles County and to apprehend this attacker. Sheriff's homicide investigators are working diligently with the Monterey Park Police Department, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and numerous other law enforcement agencies. Bottom line is here, we're going to use every resource available to us because we need to get this person off the street as soon as possible. But again, we are still in the...
Well, he did that better than you guys did too, actually. Apparently.
Very early stages of this investigation, and there actually is a lot more that we don't know than what we know at this time.
All right. And yes, we also know Hu Kan Tran is dead of self-inflicted gunshot wound. So I think we're caught up on this story. It's a tragedy. It's terrible. And it is, again, I mean, the biggest one for me is it's hilarious to see, because there wasn't a lot of news on this out there. A lot of tweets and a lot of stuff about, again, look how much stuff we skipped over. I thought this was going to be a way bigger news story than it was, but everything was just, for the most part, repeating itself over and over again off this, because this fell out of the news story in quite a hurry after they couldn't screech white supremacy anymore. All right, we got to talk about the debt ceiling, because that's still coming down the pipes here. And we're going to start with Kevin McCarthy talking about Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin going on CNN, I believe this was Sunday. Doesn't say the date on there. This was tweeted out on Sunday, so it's possible. Kevin McCarthy says Senator Manchin correctly pointed out that we have to negotiate on a responsible debt limit increase. Families and businesses have to live within a budget. Washington must as well. I look forward to sitting with President Brandon at the table. Pfft, good luck. I don't think that President Brandon has any intent to sit with you.
Yeah. The White House says that they want Congress to pass a clean debt ceiling increase. No negotiations with Republicans at all. Was that a mistake?
I think it's a mistake because we have to negotiate. This is a democracy that we have. We have a two-party system, if you will, and we should be able to talk and find out where our differences are. And if they're irreconcilable, then you have to move on from there and let the people make their decisions. Yeah.
The White House says that they want.
So that's the start of that. We've probably got some more from the Daily Wire. Manchin says Dems should negotiate with GOP on debt ceiling, use opportunity to fix the budget process. What budget process? We haven't had a balanced budget since Bill was president. From John Rigolizzo. Joe Manchin called on his fellow Democrats to negotiate with Republican House majority over the debt ceiling. In consecutive appearances on Meet the Depressed and State of the Disarray on Sunday, Manchin called out members of his own party who are refusing to negotiate with GOP leaders. Manchin said the debt ceiling fight presents an opportunity to address the dysfunction around the federal budget process and make changes. Right, but President Brandon won't come to the table. So no video on this one here. I think it's a mistake, Manchin said on CNN, of the Biden admin's refusal to negotiate. This is a democracy that we have. We have a two-party system, and we should be able to talk and find out where our differences are. And if they're irreconcilable, then you have to move on from there and let the people make their own decisions. Manchin also blasted Dick Durbin, who said Biden should not negotiate. We just respectfully disagree, Manchin said. Every American has to live within a budget. If they don't, they're in trouble financially. Every business that is successful has to live within a budget. Every state has to live within a budget. Shouldn't the federal government have some guardrails that say, hey guys, you're overreacting here, you're overspending? During his appearance on Meet the Depressed, Manchin pointed out that his entire tenure in the Senate, the budget process has been broken. I've been here 12 years, he said. We haven't had a budget deal. There's nothing that holds us accountable, he continued. Nothing at all. We can say, oh, we're going to do it. But as I've said before, 12 years, we haven't even had a budget. That's ridiculous. I think it's been longer than that. 12 years. What would that bring us to? 2011? I'm pretty sure it's been longer than that. The process isn't working, he went on. How come we're not held accountable to have appropriations bills done at a certain time before the end of the fiscal year? You know what happens? It rolls over onto the omnibus at the end. Everything's thrown into it and okay, here, we got it, guys. That's it. Makes no sense. Manchin said the debt ceiling increase would pass anyway because Congress could not risk the financial standing of the dollar. And he is unfortunately right about that as well. So we'll watch for that. A little bit here from CNN. We'll only go over a little bit of this here, but this is a full panel. Debt ceiling is not a place to negotiate cuts, says Republican strategist. Okay, well, when is? That's the question that I have here. This is also from Meet the Depressed. Let's listen.
With Congress back in session, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer went to the floor moments ago to challenge Republicans to identify which specific spending cuts they are calling for ahead of the early June deadline to raise the debt limit. According to Schumer, Republicans have been reaping political benefits for calling for spending decreases without saying where they are actually willing to cut. Take a listen to what he had to say.
If Republicans want to show that they can govern effectively, they're off to a pretty poor start. It's not enough to hide behind the old GOP talking point about wasteful spending. When you're in the majority, substance counts. If Republicans are talking about draconian cuts, they have an obligation to show Americans what those cuts are and let the public react.
Joining me now on set is Lisa Desjardins, correspondent for PBS NewsHour, Faz Shakur, senior advisor to Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, and Republican strategist and an NBC News political analyst, Rick Tyler. Thanks to all of you for being here. Happy Monday. No shortage of topics to discuss. Lisa, let me start with you. The debt ceiling, we have seen these fights before. Where does this one stand right now?
This looks like it's going to be messy, and I'll give you two reasons for that. One is that Republicans don't really have a plan for what they want. They don't have clear asks, and some of the Republicans who are really getting us to the point of saying they might block the debt ceiling, what they really want are changes in the process, and to a degree they've already gotten that. So that's going to be tricky. The other thing I'm paying attention to is I believe the base support on both sides is supporting moving both parties away from any kind of agreement. Republicans are feeling more and more justified about risking the debt ceiling. So I think it's going to be a long and very potentially dangerous few months.
Yeah, like many fights, it will likely come down to the wire. You bring me to an important point, though, which is where are the cuts? What do Republicans actually want to see? Chuck, over the weekend on Sunday, pressed Nancy Mace to identify some cuts. Take a listen to what she had to say.
Do you have one thing you're ready to put on the table as a spending cut that you think both parties can accept?
Well, I think, obviously no cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. That's a non-starter for either side. But otherwise, it's up to, I would lean on the agency heads.
Rick, how problematic is the argument that we want cuts? But Nancy Mace is saying, I'm going to lean on the agency heads to identify the cuts. Is that sustainable?
Well, I think it's problematic in messaging because she didn't have one. but look, the debt ceiling is not a place to negotiate cuts, and now the Democrats are taking advantage of this by saying exactly that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have limited, smaller.
Okay. Again, my question is, what is? If the debt ceiling is not the place to do it, what is? What other major position that could have major ramifications on the government is the time to go back and put some hurry on whether or not we actually do something to actually bring people out to the table? I think that's the perfect time. I know it's an unpopular opinion because, hey, you know, we might actually come out on the weak end of this. We've been on the weak end of this for 30 years. And going back to, like, the other side of this here is, oh, well, we cornered Nancy Mace and expected her to lay out her entire agenda of where the cuts go right now, on air, without any sort of script whatsoever. Now, mind you, I could do that, but Nancy Mace, being a brand new representative, I believe, isn't this her first term right now, is being expected to go back and find out where to make the cuts on places where, you know, she's just entering. And this Nancy Mace's response being the basis of, oh, well, the entire GOP doesn't have a plan. Look at them. Oh, let's just spend ourselves into oblivion. You're not a Republican strategist. You're a chump. Look at you. You look like Romney. From Reuters, U.S. lawmakers preparing a plan to avert debt ceiling crisis. From Jason Lang, a bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers is preparing a plan to defuse a looming crisis over the nation's debt ceiling by changing it from a fixed dollar amount to a percentage of the national economic output, a group's top Republicans said on Sunday. Oh, I know. We can just inflate the currency as much as we want to make it devalued and make our GDP look even better so we can go borrow more money. The proposal would replace Washington's current federal debt ceiling, currently set at $31.4 trillion, with a rule that would instead limit debt to a share of the national economic output, said U.S. Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, the Republican co-chair of the Moderate Problem Solvers Caucus. Fitzpatrick, appearing on Fox News Sunday with Democratic Problem Solvers co-chair Josh Gottheimer, said Republican House of Representatives Speaker Kevin McCarthy will be taking the lead in negotiations with the White House over the debt ceiling, but he and Gottheimer were putting meat on the bones of their proposal to help avoid a crisis. So I'm not completely opposed to this. except for, again, the fact that they would just inflate their way out of it if they needed to go back and make major spending happen once again. But this is a step in the right direction, because if I know that we've been closed for a long time. I don't know if we've actually surpassed it or not, but we are close to 100%, if not over 100%, of the GDP is national debt. I have heard rumors that it is like somewhere upwards of 110% of the GDP is the national debt figure. So giving it a place to actually peg to, an incentive, by the way, to improve the GDP. But again, my big problem with this is, okay, well, if we just inflate the currency and make our GDP look really, really huge, then we can go back and borrow as much as we want. Yellen, GOP demand to link spending cuts to debt limit increase is very irresponsible. From Olaf Oshin. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said in an interview published Sunday that Republican calls for spending cuts in exchange for agreeing to raise the debt ceiling were very irresponsible. No, it's better that we just go back and frivolously throw money away, and then just borrow more to cover our expenses without cutting anything else back out. No. Tying the debt increase to spending cuts, that's the irresponsible part. And the fear porn, as always. This Social Security change would be easiest and quickest, Manchin says. What debt ceiling negotiations may mean for benefits? There are 10,000 different places you can cut expenses before you even have to go anywhere near spending cuts. By the way, that's going on tomorrow's show. We'll be talking about that tomorrow. Or we may talk about it on Thursday, depending on what I see when I read it. Now that the U.S. has hit the debt ceiling, lawmakers need to revisit federal budget and find ways to make cuts. Joe Manchin, representing West Virginia, said in interviews this weekend. But that should not include cuts to Social Security and Medicare benefits, he said. I've got 60% of my population. That's all they have is Medicare or Social Security. You've got 60% of your population that's got bigger problems. Manchin told NBC's Meet the Depressed on Sunday. That is an admission of guilt right there. You think I'm going to go down that path and put them in jeopardy? No, he said. In a separate interview on CNN's State of the Union, Manchin called for a key change to help shore up Social Security's ailing funds, raising the cap on payroll taxes that are used to fund the program. So you'll lose more out of your paycheck to go put into this, to something that'll still be insolvent by the time most of us are after it, Ron Helton notwithstanding. The easiest and quickest thing that we can do is raise the cap, he said, while also curbing wasteful spending. In 2023, wages up to $160,200 are subject to a 6.2% tax for employees and employers that goes to Social Security. A 1.45% Medicare tax is also paid by employees and employers, though there's no wage limit to those taxes. Both programs face the prospect of a funding shortfall in the coming years if lawmakers fail to act. Social Security's combined trust funds are projected to become depleted in 2035, at which point 80% of the benefits will be payable according to an annual report released in June. Yeah, like I said, there's not going to be anything left of that by the time I get there. The fund that covers Medicare Part A, which pays for inpatient hospital care and other services, will be able to pay full benefits until 2028, after which point 90% of benefits will be payable. Social Security and Medicare are basically running out of cash because we stop at a certain level where people pay into FICA, Manchin said. FICA stands for the Federal Insurance Contributions Act and represents the U.S. federal payroll tax. Other Democrats have proposed raising payroll taxes to help shore up Social Security. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren had proposed reapplying payroll taxes for those earning over $250,000, along with a host of other changes that shore up the program. A separate bill to reform the program from John Larson calls for the applying of payroll taxes starting over $400,000. Now, see, and what they're trying to do here is, obviously, first off, the $400,000 mark, the arbitrary mark that they call a middle-class family, which is in no way a middle-class family at this point. There's that aspect and that avenue to things, but, a part of the reason that they put the cap on there is the fact that, for the most part, if you're making over $160,200, there is a really good chance that you are probably not going to need Social Security for your retirement. And that's just the facts. If you're making that much individually, because remember, that goes individually, not jointly. If you're making that much individually, there's a good chance that you've got a fully funded pension, either from the government or your employer, or you've got enough that you can throw around in your 401k. So the only reason you would really need Social Security over that point is if you were really, really stupid with your money. So there's that aspect and avenue to things. It kind of goes along the side of, I paid into Social Security for my entire life, so don't touch my Social Security. And when they raise the cap, it's, the rich, as they call them, have not paid into their Social Security. Alright, what else do we have? So we've got the proposal over here to tie it to the national GDP, of course, again, to be incentive to raise the GDP, make that look really, really good and nice. On the other end of things, Democrats push to eliminate the debt ceiling, allowing unlimited government borrowing. From Peter Kasperowicz. Dozens of House Democrats have proposed legislation that would eliminate the debt ceiling, which would allow the government to borrow without any limits set by Congress. The federal government hit the $31.381 trillion debt ceiling last week. The House Republicans are pushing for commitments to cut back on the record growth in federal spending before agreeing to allow more borrowing. But Democrats accuse Republicans of setting up the possibility of prohibiting a debt ceiling hike, which would make the government unable to fund all its current obligations. Well, drop some of your obligations if you didn't have the money to pay for them. Democrats say a better idea is to eliminate all limits on federal borrowing and allow the government to borrow whatever it needs. Yeah, that's not a solution. Weaponizing the debt ceiling and using it as a pawn in partisan budget negotiations is dangerous and repeatedly brings our nation to the brink of default, which would be disastrous to the U.S. economy, something we've witnessed as recently as 2011, when Republicans created a debt ceiling crisis that resulted in the first ever downgrade to the U.S. credit rating, said Bill Foster of Illinois. The government has an obligation to pay its bills, he added. Threatening to default on our debt is the same as ordering an expensive meal at a restaurant, eating it, and skipping out without paying. No, that's not what that is. Threatening to default on our debt is you come in as the financial advisor to a family that has spent way more than it takes in, and then telling them that there's nothing they can do without making massive spending cuts. We can and should have a real conversation about overall spending, but the full faith and credit for the U.S. must never be compromised. No. Threatening to default on our debt is like you, Bill Foster, coming in, ordering an expensive meal, and then pointing to me and saying, hey, that dude over there said that he'd pay for it. Foster's bill is the End of the Threat of Default Act and is co-sponsored by 42 House Democrats, including Pramila Jayapal of Washington, Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas, Jerry Connolly of Virginia, Rashida Tlaib of Michigan, and Barbara Lee of California. Because of course they were going to. I've got a listen here. We're going to listen to our friends over at NPR telling us an economist's case for abolishing the debt ceiling. Heard on All Things Considered, and I'm going to tell you right now, NPR's Michael Martin speaks with economist Louise Shiner about why the U.S. has a debt ceiling and why lawmakers should consider abolishing it. I'm going to tell you right now, and if you've got kids listening right now, throw the earmuffs on, because I've not listened to this, but I can tell you right off the bat, just by the headline, that this is a shitty economist. And this is not somebody I want analyzing my economy, but remember, hit that donate button, because NPR needs our money to tell you that we shouldn't have a debt ceiling. We should just print and borrow and fund and fund and fund and fund all the little wish lists ever, and not even worry about what's going to happen with our debt. And in fact, we should have a $400 trillion national debt. They need your money, I mean our money, comrade, to be able to tell the gullibles out there about that. So hit that donate button. NPR is never printing reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what Michael Martin has to say.
The U.S. reached its debt ceiling earlier this week, and now Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has had to resort to so-called extraordinary measures so the government can continue to pay its bills. But that will only work until the first week of June. If Congress fails to raise the debt limit before then, it will result in a debt default, and that could have terrible consequences for not just the U.S. economy, but the global one. So now the country is likely facing months of wrangling between House Republicans and the Biden administration over government spending and other issues. So now you might be asking, why? Why do we go through this every couple of years? Our next guest says, good question, and just one reason she thinks Congress should abolish the debt limit. Louise Shiner is an economist who previously worked at the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department. She's now a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, a think tank in Washington, D.C., and she's with us now to tell us more about why she says that. Louise Shiner, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Could you just briefly tell us what exactly the debt ceiling is and why do we have one in the first place? It's my understanding that the U.S. and Denmark are the only countries in the world that have a defined debt ceiling like this. So why do we have it?
So the debt ceiling is a legal limit on how much debt the Treasury can have. So it puts a limit on borrowing. When you hit that debt limit, the Treasury cannot increase its borrowing. And actually, the history of why we have it, it was first implemented around World War I. Before that, every time the Treasury wanted to borrow, it actually had to get approval from Congress. So Congress was managing the debt, not Treasury, and that proved unworkable. And so the debt limit was actually a way of giving Treasury more discretion. Oh, you can manage the debt as long as you don't exceed this amount.
So last year you testified before a House committee advocating for the elimination of the debt ceiling, and you had three major reasons why. You said the debt ceiling doesn't serve any useful purpose. You said we don't know what would happen to interest rates and the standing if Congress somehow failed to raise the debt ceiling, but we do know the effects would be negative. And you said that the country faces a lot of long-term economic challenges and that bickering over the debt ceiling is basically a waste of time and energy. It doesn't serve any useful purpose. So just walk me through those, one by one. I mean, starting with the first one, that it doesn't serve any useful purpose. Yeah. But one of the things Republicans argue is that they don't really have any other mechanism to limit federal spending, that this is really the only tool they have.
Right. So first of all, obviously, that's not the only tool they have. Congress passes legislation. That is part of a political process. But the resulting legislation from that process is what really determines taxes and spending. The debt ceiling doesn't, right? That's the thing to really remember is if you don't raise the debt limit, you are not going to, in any kind of long-run sense, affect spending or revenues. So you're not going to affect the level of debt because eventually it's going to have to be paid. This is going to have to resolve. The only way to change the level of the debt is to change your tax revenues that are coming in or your spending that's going out, and that requires direct legislation on those elements. And I think the evidence suggests that really the debt ceiling has not had a disciplinary effect on the budget. It really is used more, I think, as a political football than as a really intentional way of addressing our long-term challenges. And that goes to my final point. I'm going to skip the order because we do have long-term fiscal challenges. We have other challenges as well besides fiscal challenges. We have, high levels of inequality. We have limited economic mobility. We have slow productivity growth. We have to deal with climate change, with healthcare costs. We have a lot of challenges. And the way for Congress to address those challenges is in a serious, deliberative manner where they really think carefully about what we're going to do. It's not about sort of saying, oh my God, you better.
Yeah, this is not somebody that I want anywhere near my economy. I can tell you that right off the bat. Oh, no, it's just fine. We can just spend as much money as we want and don't worry about it. Yeah, no. All right. Elizabeth Warren says Republicans are running a con game with the debt ceiling and repealing Trump's tax breaks for the wealthy should come first. From Juliana Kaplan and Ayelet Sheffy, I want to remind everybody who's listening here, I am not wealthy. But when Trump's tax cuts went in, it made a recalculation of how much was taken out of each paycheck every month, because I didn't change my deductions, which my tax accountant keeps saying is I should not be counting myself as head of household, even though I am head of household. I'm the only person in the household, but I'm head of household. My tax accountant keeps telling me I should change that and claim 0. No, I claim myself as head of household. But where I'm going with this, and what I mean when I talk about this, is the fact that, the amount of paycheck that they were taking out to cover taxes went down, and my paychecks went up $50 a week when the Trump tax cuts for the wealthy went in. Could you imagine that? Being considered wealthy at $38,000 a year. The U.S. has hit the debt ceiling, and the country is careening closer towards financial crisis as Republicans threaten to bring the country... Oh, wow, the op-ed in this. Threaten to bring the country to default over social spending, but Senator Elizabeth Warren thinks that it's time to take a look at rolling back tax cuts on the wealthy. In an op-ed for the Boston Globe, Warren, a Democrat from Massachusetts, wrote that Republicans don't really care about the national debt. Instead, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who had to weather 15 long votes to finally get his hands on the gavel, is running a con game alongside extremist Republicans. They claim their plan is to use the debt ceiling to trigger global economic chaos. It's about fiscal responsibility. It's not, Warren wrote. The House Republican plan is for the debt ceiling is about protecting the wealthy and the well-connected from paying their fair share. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay. What? First off, my question always is, what is the fair share? Give me a number. What is their fair share? But second off, and this is the most important part, the thing that blows my mind. So the people that talk like Elizabeth Warren does, who actually is wealthy in her own rights, Elizabeth Warren herself doesn't believe this, but her followers do, her brain-dead followers do. Believe that people like Elon Musk are swimming around in a giant building full of dollar bills, like Scrooge McDuck, except not in gold coins. Like, he goes out, the building is filled with dollar bills, billions of dollar bills, and he just goes in there and swims through the dollar bills. So, and this is the hard part for me, because because the wealthy, their wealth is held up and hold up in assets. That's why they don't have to pay taxes on their wealth. only on their income. And they're held up in assets that, for the most part, appreciate in value. Yachts, buildings, high-end vehicles, especially ones that they can't drive, priceless art, gold, silver, Bitcoin on many of their portfolios. Their assets are not held in cash. If the debt ceiling default does what you guys keep claiming that it's going to do, that is going to tear apart the asset market. That's a detriment to the wealthy. Oh no, they might not be able to pay their fair share, whatever number that arbitrary number is, but I mean, they'll definitely be paying taxes when they start offloading some of these things to pay the interest on other things that have lost value. Are you dumb? And there's not going to be anybody out there to buy them either. They'll be selling them at bargain basement prices. Mrs. Warren, are you dumb? Instead, before eyeing cuts to programs like Social Security and Medicare to bring down the national debt, Warren said that lawmakers should first roll back the 2017 Trump tax cuts for the wealthy. I agree with the first half of that sentence. There are 10 billion ways to cut expenses before we get anywhere close to Social Security and Medicare. But the fear is always there. Oh, it's going to be Social Security and Medicare. There's nothing else they can cut from. And the people that follow and vote for people like Elizabeth Warren are going to gobble that crap up. From Spectrum News. Florida Democrats slam GOP on debt ceiling amid standoff. From Karina Capabianca. With the clock ticking and a deadline to increase the nation's borrowing limit, Florida Democrats denounced the push by Republicans to require spending cuts as part of any deal to raise the debt ceiling. The U.S. reached its $31.4 trillion limit last week, prompting the Treasury to take extraordinary measures to allow the government to continue to pay its bills. Democrats argue Congress has voted to raise the borrowing limit numerous times under presidents of both parties and say it's not raising the debt ceiling that would have devastating impact on the global economy. Well, it was wrong under all those other presidents too. What the Republicans in the House want to focus on is whether or not we pay our debts. Maxwell Frost said, whether or not we pay our debts of money already spent. This isn't about future spending. It can be a different conversation. This is about right now. Janet Yellen sent a letter to Kevin McCarthy last week urging members to raise the borrowing limit promptly to protect the full faith and credit of the U.S. So, let's see. Let's see. If the federal government defaults because Republicans refuse to raise the debt ceiling, Social Security and Medicare payments could be disrupted, said Max Richtman, the president and CEO of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. It's a lose-lose scenario for American seniors. Republicans want to tie a debt ceiling increase to spending cuts or other concessions from Democrats, saying they would only raise the debt ceiling to secure an overhaul in federal spending. Democrats refusing to negotiate a plan to lower our federal debt are consciously choosing their radical agenda over your best interest, Rick Scott said. But Debbie Wasserman Schultz says nothing is negotiable when it comes to paying our nation's bills. Well, I mean, again, we could always go back and lower our nation's bills. We have to pay our bills, and so there are no cuts that should be negotiated, tied to whatever or not. We pay the nation's debt and pay our bills, she added. That's not Florida Democrats, that's one Florida Democrat. You morons. Alright, let's talk Document Gate. We've got about 10 minutes left, and then we will do the rules of acquisition and head on over to watch the Porch Boys, I think. Let me just make sure they're going to be on tonight. Yep, Porch Boys are going to be on tonight after this. More Majora's Mask, for those of you who enjoy video games. Otherwise, if you're on the Twitch side, we will go back over and find someone to raid on that side as well. From the Blaze, DOJ finds more classified documents at Biden's home in Delaware. From Paul Saka. This is another one that was very, very hard to find non-Blaze/DailyWire source material for. Our friends at CNN and ABC don't want to talk about this for whatever reason. DOJ officials found more classified documents at Biden's home in Wilmington. Biden's lawyer said a DOJ search revealed 6 items of documents with classification markings. DOJ officials conducted a 12-hour search of Biden's Delaware house on Friday. Bob Bauer, personal lawyer for Biden, said in a statement, DOJ requested that the search not be made public in advance in accordance with its standard procedures, and we agreed to cooperate. The DOJ had full access to Biden's home, including personally handwritten notes, files, papers, binders, memorabilia, to-do lists, schedules, and reminders going back decades, Bauer stated. He continued, DOJ took possession of materials deemed within the scope of its inquiry, including 6 items consisting of documents with classification markings and surrounding materials, some of which were from the president's service on the Senate, which means that he had absolutely no authority to declassify them at all, and some of which were from his tenure as vice president. The DOJ also took for further review personally handwritten notes from the vice presidential years. Richard Sauber, who serves as White House special counsel, noted that the president and First Lady Jill were not at the Wilmington residence during Saturday's search that began approximately 9:45 a.m. and included around 10:30 p.m. Biden is spending the weekend at his beachfront property in Rehoboth Beach, about 90 miles south of Wilmington. Well, go search that one next. CNBC reported some of the classified documents and surrounding material dated from Biden's tenure in the Senate, where he represented Delaware from 73 to 09, according to his lawyer, Bob Bauer, who said the DOJ was invited to conduct the search. And some of the documents were from his tenure as vice president in the Obama admin from 09 to 2017. Look, the thing with this, again, I think a lot of this is under the busism. I think that I'm pretty sure that a lot of reps and senators take their documents home with them. I wouldn't even believe that this is an outstanding incident, but I think there's an increasing chance that Joe gets impeached and removed, setting up who they were trying to astroturf in as the president from the beginning first. And then secondly, this is also a way that they can go attack Trump. See, we took our guy out. Why are you still trying to have your guy run? But whether or not this is organic or grassroots, I don't believe at all. I never have, and I never will. Got one here from the Hill for us. Democrats express alarm over Biden's classified docs. I am very concerned. From Alexander Bolton. Democrats are expressing alarm over President Biden's classified documents controversy, with some criticizing the president as diminished in stature and his staff as irresponsible. Yes and yes. I'm very concerned, said John Tester, one of several incumbent Democrats who face potentially difficult re-election races next year in reliably GOP states in presidential elections. We have to get to the bottom of it to find out what the hell happened and why it happened, he said. This is about national security, Tester added, saying investigators need to find out if it put our national security at risk. I'm guessing actually probably not. Biden's January has been submerged in revelation after revelation of classified documents that they actually found in November before the midterms in his former office and home. Joe Manchin, like Tester, who is up for re-election next year in a state that Trump won easily in 2020, blasted the lax handling of secret information as unbelievable and totally irresponsible. Biden's attempt to dismiss the building scandal last week by asserting there's no there there also drew a bar from Manchin. He told CNN on Monday that that's not just a good statement. We just don't know what secrets may have been compromised. Criticism from Manchin is hardly unheard of, but Dick Durbin, who represents a safer state for Democrats, was also somewhat critical on Sunday. He said the controversy diminishes Biden and noted the president rightly felt embarrassed by the situation. Durbin on Monday said of the White House, they were not careful in handling classified documents, and by the way, when Dick Durbin has turned on you, you're probably facing down an impeachment and removal. I mean, we know he's facing down an impeachment, but a removal too. When I think of how we deal with them in the Capitol in comparison, whoever was responsible for it didn't follow the basic rules, Durbin said of the handling of classified documents. Durbin said he never took a classified document out of his office, let alone out of the building. I might need to see some verification on that, but yeah, again, when Dick Durbin has turned on you, you're not in a good position in the Democrat Party. All right, we've got a few more here, but we are going to save these for tomorrow. We are out of time because in just a few minutes it is time for the Porch Boys. But before we finish off, we do finish off each week with a little bit of fun, a little bit of non-political news. With me being an ultra-capitalist, on Monday we finish off by looking at the Ferengi rules of acquisition, what they mean, and we use the beta canon because it gives us more. What they mean in universe, and what they potentially mean in the real world. The Ferengi created to be the original antagonists of the Next Generation, dismissed for being way too goofy and way too concerned with capitalism, did get a recurring role in which where their religion was revealed, and their religion is revealed that they have 434 rules that they use to interact with other species around the galaxy and conduct business, both on their home planet and abroad as well. Each week we go through one of these rules and see if we can apply it to the real world. Some of them we can, some of them we can't. So we will move down to the 125th rule of acquisition this week. A very, 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 very important one. And it goes along with an old saying that we have in real life too. The 125th rule of acquisition says you can't make a deal if you're dead. Self-protection and self-defense, and even retreat in some cases, are sometimes necessary. We'd all like to say that we'd be brave, that we would stand up to the evil bully, the evil attacker, or even the evil government coming to us. But if we are out there to seek profit, sometimes we have to look at the situation that we're in and make the decision. Are we outmatched? Are we outgunned? And do we have a place to retreat to? Sometimes the odds are not going to be in your favor, and it just happens that way. Most of the time, if you defend yourself well, they will be. Sometimes they won't. But remember, in the midst of that, as you are going out to collect gold, or latinum if you're in the Star Trek universe, that you can't make a deal if you're dead. You can make no profit if you're dead. There are a lot of things you can't do. But you will make no profit if you are deceased. So, when the situation arises, if you have the point where you can assess, if you're not in dire straits and about to die immediately, and you can assess and find a better way, instead of trying to fight your way out of something you're completely outmatched on, maybe make the assessment. Maybe look at what you can make for your friends, your family, and the people who care about you, and decide whether or not you want to be rich and dead, or alive and able to become richer. So with that, 125th. You can't make a deal if you're dead, and you absolutely can't. So with that, we head out of here for the day. I like doing this, by the way. This is probably one of my favorite segments. When we come down and we look through some of this, and a lot of these, like I say, a lot of these we really can't apply to the real world, either because of the way that they're written or because of some of the extreme capitalism out there that we can't completely abide by. But a lot of these out that are on this list, we can apply to our real lives, and we should as well. So I like doing that segment. Let's head out of here for the day. So, thanks everybody who came by, chatted in the live chat, everybody who came by and hung out, and we got some new names in here. I think that the one new name over on the D-Live side, but we also got Nephilim back, and MK Ultra came back on the night show, so that's awesome for you as well. Factotem, new name over there over on D-Live, but I do think that is somebody who, I think that might be Mr. Scott, by the way, I think, because when Mr. Scott stopped talking, Factotem came back in, so I think that might be who that is. But with that, we're out of here for the night. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back here tomorrow with more news, more headlines, and we will cover what Democrats and even Lauren Boebert did on the 50th anniversary of Roe. Definitely looking forward to sharing that with you, because I always enjoy sharing the news with you guys, looking over that, seeing how it applies to our everyday lives, even though it's the people who are way richer than us that are doing it, and seeing how it will affect us either way. So come back and join me again. Tell a few friends, get some more people over here. We will see you next time. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.